Good morning. In the earlier part of the course, we discussed the issue of making openings for air diffusers, air intakes, exhaust outlets, and ventilation shafts. In this part of the course, we will discuss the topic of locating and positioning the ventilation unit, so as to ensure proper installation and service spaces for the heat recovery ventilator. One of the elements of installing a heat recovery ventilation system in a building is the location of the ventilation unit and the connection of the ducts leading outside and inside, that is, the air intake and exhaust connected to the unit. Using the project where the ventilation unit is located in the technical room and the preliminary layout of the intake and exhaust ducts is planned. Now we move on to the, let's call it, practical part. So at this point we need to mark the spots in the technical room where the ventilation unit, as well as the intake and exhaust, should be installed. In this particular building, a HRV ventilation unit is specifically planned, where the connection nozzles are precisely located vertically upwards, with the clear assumption that the air intake is positioned on the left-hand side and the air exhaust is situated on the right-hand side, ensuring optimal air circulation and system efficiency. In such a case, using this wall and knowing that we have to place the intake on this side due to the building's position relative to the road and other elements, at this point we need to plan so that there won't be any collisions between the intake ducts, exhaust ducts, and other ducts, which is why in this building the intake will be placed roughly here. As for the location of the exhaust, by passing through this wall of the technical room, when building the installation, we'll run the ducts along the ceiling and place the exhaust roughly at this location on this wall. Using information from the investor, which isn't visible on the floor plan, we were told that there will be an additional 5 to 6 centimeters of thermal insulation on the ceiling in this room. That's why the opening for the duct, for the pipe to the exhaust, needs to be lowered by that height, so it's best to do it about 10 to 15 centimeters from the ceiling in this room. And that's exactly how the opening is being marked right now, where in a moment it will be drilled or broken through, where you should then properly make the opening either by drilling or breaking through the given wall. When you have agreed with the investor or when installing the ventilation unit yourself, the most important information you can get from the installation and operation manual is the information about the space that needs to be left at the place where the ventilation unit will be installed, among other things. From the side, from the top, or from the bottom, and using the dimensions that are also provided in the installation manual, we precisely locate the spot where we want the unit to be placed and installed. And so, for example, in the case of a V-type heat recovery unit, the most important piece of information we get from the installation manual is that we need to leave at least 30 centimeters of free space on the right side of the unit because the Wi-Fi module, that is, the communication module of the ventilation unit, is installed on that side. Next, once we have already marked out the marked dimension, at least 30 centimeters, in this case we mark 40. The width of the ventilation unit is 1041 millimeters. So we can also easily transfer the unit's dimension as needed. 1041. The next parameter we need to maintain is the minimum height from the floor, from the surface, at least 100 millimeters, which is 10 centimeters. But for convenience and ease of use later on, it's better to leave about 25 centimeters. The ventilation unit possesses a significant dimension, specifically a height of 981 millimeters. So for practical purposes, Let's round that up and assume a full 1000 millimeters for now. This precisely means that in these designated spots and specific locations here, the ventilation unit is actually and precisely situated and located. Another important dimension is the distance to the axis of the duct, 141 millimeters from the edge of the device. It's the same here in this spot, so also 141 millimeters. Millimeters from the edge of the device to the axis of the exhaust opening. Here we have the intake duct. So if we have the space planned and organized like this, where we install the ventilation unit, it will be easier for us in the next stage to connect the duct to the ventilation unit and to install the unit itself in the designated spot. The next stage and part of the course is the installation of the air distribution system, that is, the distribution boxes, plenum boxes, and the ducts connecting them. I invite you to this part of the course.